When a plant grows long, bare gaps of stem between each leaf, all leaning one direction, it isn't growing happily. It's starving for light. The scientific term is etiolation. The plant burns stored energy to stretch its stems fast, racing to find stronger light before its reserves run out. New leaves that emerge during this stretch are smaller and thinner than the ones below, since the plant is spending its resources on stem length instead of leaf tissue. Rotating the pot fixes the direction of the lean but does nothing for the stretching itself. The real fix is moving the plant closer to light gradually over 1 to 2 weeks so the thin new tissue doesn't scorch in a sudden jump in intensity. But stretching stems are the easy read. The next one fools almost everyone because the leaf looks fine everywhere except the veins. When a brand new leaf emerges yellow while its veins stay sharply green, forming a net pattern, the plant isn't short on nitrogen. It's short on usable iron. This almost always happens in alkaline soil or hard tap water, where the pH is high enough that iron in the soil locks into a form roots can't absorb, even when plenty is present. Because iron doesn't move well once absorbed, the deficiency always shows up in new growth first. Older leaves stay green because they banked their iron before the lockout began. Watering with distilled or rainwater and adding a chelated iron supplement corrects it within a few weeks. A leaf that develops a purple or reddish tint, especially on its underside or veins, signals one of two stresses. In cooler temperatures, this is often phosphorus deficiency. Cold soil slows phosphorus uptake even when it's abundant, and phosphorus normally masks the plant's natural red pigments. Without it, those pigments show through. If the room is warm and the purpling is new, the likelier cause is a cold draft from a night near a window or an air conditioning vent. The test: warm the environment, and green returns within days if it's temperature-related, but stays purple if it's a true deficiency. Here's a scorch pattern with nothing to do with dry air. It only shows up on one side of the plant. Crispy, brown, tightly curled tissue appearing only on the side facing a window, vent, or lamp, while the opposite side stays soft and green, is direct thermal damage, not humidity. Tissue closest to the heat source loses water faster than the vascular system can resupply from that side, while the shaded side never faces the same demand. It's easy to mistake for underwatering because the symptom looks identical, except it's asymmetrical. The fix isn't more water, it's distance. Move the plant back from the source or add a sheer curtain, and new growth on that side comes in undamaged. Small clusters of white cottony fluff tucked into leaf joints or stems aren't mold or eggs. They're mealybugs, soft-bodied insects that secrete a waxy coating over themselves as a shell. That coating is exactly why sprays that work on other pests fail here. The wax repels water-based solutions on contact. Mealybugs feed the way aphids do, piercing the plant for sap, which is why infestations bring sticky honeydew and weakened new growth. Isopropyl alcohol on a cotton swab dissolves the wax on contact and kills the insect underneath, making it the most reliable spot treatment for small colonies. That split running down a leaf looks like damage. On some plants, it's the opposite. Not every split or hole is a problem. Species in the Monstera and Philodendron families are genetically programmed to develop natural splits, called fenestrations, as each leaf matures. This isn't stress or pest activity, it's structural, letting wind pass through broad leaves without tearing and letting light reach lower leaves in a dense canopy. Natural fenestration always follows a symmetrical pattern along the veins and only appears on mature, fully unfurled leaves, never on new growth still opening. Irregular tiers with ragged edges, especially on species that don't naturally fenestrate, point to physical damage or pests instead. A crusty white ring on the soil surface is easy to ignore. It's one of the most common causes of a symptom people blame on underwatering. A white crust forming on the soil surface or around drainage holes is mineral salt buildup, left behind as water evaporates and leaves dissolved minerals from tap water and fertilizer. Over time, those salts raise the soil solution's concentration around the roots so high it pulls water out of root cells instead of letting roots absorb it, a process called reverse osmosis. The result is browning at leaf tips and edges identical to underwatering, but it doesn't improve no matter how much you water. Flushing the pot with roughly triple its volume in distilled water, letting it drain fully, washes the accumulated salts out. There's another yellowing pattern that looks almost identical to a nitrogen problem, but it's a different mineral entirely, and it shows up on the oldest leaves for the opposite reason. When older, lower leaves develop yellow patches between the veins, while the veins stay green, spreading inward from the edges, the cause is usually magnesium deficiency. Magnesium sits at the center of every chlorophyll molecule, and because it's mobile within the plant, it gets pulled out of older leaves to supply new growth when supply runs short. This mirrors the iron deficiency above in reverse. Iron hits new growth because it can't move once absorbed. Magnesium hits old growth because it can move and gets redirected. A diluted Epsom salt solution applied monthly resupplies magnesium directly, typically showing improvement within 2 to 3 weeks. When a flowering plant forms buds that shrivel, yellow, and drop before opening, the plant hasn't failed. It's made a triage decision. Flower buds are the most expensive structures a plant produces, and the first sacrificed when the plant senses a sudden shift. A sharp humidity change, a temperature swing, or the shock of being moved or repotted while in bud. It's a protective response, not disease. The plant is cutting its most expensive investment to protect its leaves and roots. Keeping a budding plant in a stable spot, away from doors and vents, and avoiding repotting until after bloom is the only reliable prevention. This next pest is often mistaken for a disease because it doesn't look like an insect at all. Small, brown, rounded bumps stuck firmly along a stem or leaf vein that don't move and don't wipe off are scale insects. Once mature, they anchor in place and grow a hard, waxy shell, which is why most people assume the bumps are a growth or disease rather than a pest. Underneath, they feed continuously on sap, which is why infested stems weaken and nearby leaves yellow and drop. The shell also blocks most sprays from making contact. Scraping the bumps off with a fingernail or soft toothbrush, then following up with isopropyl alcohol on the site, is the only reliable removal method. The next warning sign doesn't show up on the leaves at all. It shows up in the air around the pot, before you ever see a symptom. A sour, swampy smell from the soil, even when every leaf still looks normal, is the earliest warning sign of root rot, appearing well before any visible wilting or yellowing. The smell comes from anaerobic bacteria thriving in waterlogged, oxygen-starved soil, the same conditions killing root tissue. Because root damage takes time to show up in the leaves, this smell test catches the problem days or weeks before the plant shows outward stress. Unpotting at the first sign of the smell, inspecting the roots, and trimming away dark or mushy sections before repotting into dry, fresh substrate prevents the damage that shows up once wilting begins. Small, raised, brown, corky patches on a leaf's underside, feeling almost like tiny warts rather than flat spots, are a condition called edema, and it isn't pests, fungus, or disease. It happens when roots absorb water faster than leaves can release it through transpiration, usually because the soil is warm and wet while the air is cool and humid. The excess pressure ruptures cells from the inside, and the plant seals them with the same corky tissue it uses to heal a physical wound. Once scarred, a patch stays permanently but won't spread. Improving airflow and slightly reducing watering frequency, so uptake and transpiration rebalance, prevents new patches from forming.